Okay, I'm going to get started because I know it's mid-afternoon, so people are working, so it's probably not going to be a lot of viewers. So you guys can check this out later on. Uh, as usual, it's your boy, Chris Adrea, Man in the Mirror. Today's title is The Road Not Taken. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Hey, you guys remember Coke? Now, everybody who's part of my health group is going to say, Chris, why are you drinking soda? You're not supposed to drink soda. I've been drinking a lot of soda here. I'm just going to put it out there. It's hot as hell. And this is what's cooling me off. My mother makes a lot of fruit juices. I'm drinking that too. I'm drinking a lot of water as well, but just as soon as I'm drinking it, I'm burning it up. So, anyway. Remember, for those who are my age, that's the way it should be. And I'd like to see the whole world smiling with me. That's a Coke and a smile. I love that commercial. Anyway, I was really just trying to kill time. Okay, so the title, The Road Not Taken. For those who obviously know, many probably know, this is a very famous poem written by Robert Frost. It's probably the first poem that had, I'd say, somewhat of an impression on me that I could remember. I think we did that early in high school or something like that, where we had to break down the poem and its meaning. And I mean, even young, I found it to be pretty deep. And today, I just see how it relates to life in general. So let me just read you the how it ends, or I think it's called stanza, the final stanza, and it reads: the two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So just hold on to that as we kind of go through this, and I have notes, and you'll see me flipping through them because I have quite a bit. Hopefully, I won't run on too long. But that poem, and certainly that final stanza, as I view it, is about choices. It's about the choices we make, and more importantly, it's about making the least favorable or likely choice, meaning everybody is making this choice and you're going the opposite way. So I wanna talk about choices today. Really, that's essentially our topic. Whether you know it or not, we have a choice to make literally every minute of the day. From the minute you wake up, you've made a choice. So whether you wake up at 5 a.m. or you wake up at 10 a.m., that's a choice. But what you need to think about every time you make a choice is, what is the effect of your choice? Now, most of us will say, what's the big deal? There's no need for me to get up earlier, so I don't get up. If I'm comparing two people, one gets up at 5 and one gets up at 10, that's a 5-hour difference. How much more productive will the 5 a.m. person be versus the 10 a.m. person in terms of what they're trying to accomplish in life? It does make a difference. It makes a big difference. I mean, you stop and think, what would you accomplish in another 5 hours a day? For those of us who say, I never have time working out, for those of us who are trying to write a book, for those of us who are studying for something, for those of us who have any kind of goal, could you accomplish that with an extra 5 hours a day? And if we just dealt with 5 days a week, that's an extra 25 hours a week for you to devote towards whatever it is that you wanted. So again, choices, no matter how small they are, accumulate into humongous impact to your life. So you got to get into a point where you're kind of thinking that through and understanding that that is the case. Every choice makes a difference. When you go up, when you leave your house and you say, I want to get some breakfast, well, you have a choice, right? I can make a meal at home. I can drive by the McDonald's drive through and order the number four, whatever that is. Or I can get a fruit bowl with 2 strips of turkey bacon. Individually, they're not a big thing, but the accumulation of that will have an impact. If you choose to eat healthy, obviously your body will be stronger, you'll think clearer, all the things that you already know and you've already heard. If you decide to go to McDonald's every morning, over time, that daily decision or choice will manifest itself into hypertension, into potentially a heart attack, into you having to change how you wear clothes, and potentially it changing your confidence, and so on and so on, and maybe how you're viewed by the people who love you or attracted to you, all that. They have long-term consequences. The small choices do have consequences. I wrote here, the greatest collective decisions we make are often the smallest, most meaningless ones in our lives. So, when we think about that poem, there's a fork in the road and we have to choose. I mean, we're really typically thinking about big decisions in life, aren't we? I mean, we're thinking about, do I marry this person? Do I buy a home or do I rent? Do we put our kids in private school or public school? I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, when we think about making those big decisions, that fork in the road decision, we are talking about those types of decisions. The reality, though, is the biggest impact to our lives are made by the small individual decisions that we make that accumulate over time. Having the ability to discipline yourself and manage that is ultimately what bears fruit. I read, and I'm sure there are some of you who read it too, The Millionaire Next Door. And it's funny, when I read that book, I was expecting some big knowledge about, how you can become rich and things of that nature. And throughout that book, all it talked about is people became millionaires just by saving a little, just by not living in luxury, not by getting the greatest when they can just get what was enough. You got people with a lot of money in the bank. They've got $2, 3, $400,000 in the bank, but they're getting a $5,000 used car. They're not getting designer clothes. That's what made them millionaires. So again, it's about the small individual choices we make every day that ultimately empower us and get us towards where we want to be. But we have this larger than life kind of way of thinking about things where I got to get it. I need it now. And it's those decisions that hold us back. Just to kind of, I guess, put some more examples to it. Every time you decide to spark up a cigarette, it's one cigarette. But one cigarette 4 times a day for 25 years will eventually deliver emphysema, cancer, whatever. It's going to bring a negative result to what you're trying to do. Every time you decide to come home and you don't kiss your wife hello, that doesn't seem like a big deal on a daily basis, but over time that grows a larger and larger wedge between you and your wife. There's a disconnection that's going to happen that started in year 1, and now here we are in year 10, and you're still doing that, and now you're both used to not greeting each other, when you see each other. So again, the choices that we make on a daily basis over time, they unfortunately can either bear good fruit or bad fruit. So you got to be careful with that. We've essentially grown up hearing phrases like "slow and steady wins the race." But the question is, do we apply that? I mean, we know these things that we hear, but do we actually live in that? I would say most of us don't. I mean, we know the phrase, we got the T-shirts, we read the postcards. I think, like everything else, things are easier to talk about and less easy to apply because they really they call on us to put forth some action in the unknown because we don't know whether or not it's going to be worth our time, whether we're going to feel stupid on the other end of it. And again, part of that is because we're a society that lives in the I gotta have it right now. I need it right now. There is no waiting. That just seems like I even talk to my kids. I hear it in them all the time. There is there is a mentality that if you take too long to do something, you're stupid. You know, you don't know what you're doing. People are getting it. I'm winning. All these phrases that I don't even know. I'm old, but and to me, they send across the wrong message because slow and steady does win the race. And if you're doing the right things consistently, yeah, it's not always going to happen when you want it to happen. But guess what? Those of you who are making decisions for the quick turnaround, it ain't happening for you either. And yet you're not building the same foundation for it to happen going forward. I once heard Will Smith tell a story, and I'm sure many of you have heard the same story. His father had him and his brother build a wall, and his father told him and his brother to build a wall, and Will Smith said to his father, "We're kids, we can't build a wall." And
Put it in the end.
that's my mother again. So, sorry, I forgot what I was saying. Yeah, he said we can't build a wall, and his father said, "Yes, you can. Take one brick at a time to build the wall, and make sure you place that brick perfectly." And they did that every day. Now, obviously, you can tell where the story is going. At the end of it, they had a wall. Now, if they looked at it from a wall standpoint, we got to build a wall. Of course, you can't do that. We're kids. But if you look at it from a brick standpoint, just all I'm asking you to do is put the brick down. Make it perfectly set, put enough cement, and then do that over and over and over again. At the end of it, they had a very strong wall. And that is life, right? Slow and steady wins the race. If you are making the choice. So, and I should say, in that story, Will Smith's choice was to place the bricks perfectly. That was a choice. Because someone else will do exactly the same thing. Will say, hey, I'll build the wall because that's what my father said, but I don't care about it. So plop, plop, plop. And inside of a week or two, the wall falls over because it's not stable. It's not even because the person didn't take care in putting that one task, that one brick at a time, perfectly down. So that is a choice. Another story that I'm reminded of is Tyler Perry. And I don't remember 100% what this is about, but I think there's some allegations with Tyler Perry's father, I think, touched him, may have molested him or something like that. And he grew up with this issue for many years, and then he came out and said something about it, kind of exposed his father. But what was fascinating to me is although he exposed his father, he forgave him. And then went on, Tyler Perry has goo gobs of money, but he went on to take care of his father. And many people said, well, why would you take care of your father after he did that to him? Now, that was a choice that Tyler Perry made. I would imagine that the choice had one to do with, and I've talked about this previously, to free himself. You cannot free yourself if your choice is to hold anger. You will forever have that looming over your head. I mean, that's a cloud that's over your head the longer you want to hold resentment towards somebody. So Tyler Perry made a choice that I'm going to acknowledge what you did, and you're going to acknowledge what I did, and then I'm going to make the choice to forgive you and move forward. Now, I also heard Tyler Perry say it's not like we're the best of friends, and that's not what I'm saying either. But he had to let it go. The choice in not letting that go is I don't think Tyler Perry is the man, the businessman, the celebrity that you see today if he doesn't let that go. I mean, my question to you guys is how many of you have grudges that you're holding with somebody? Keep in mind, at least in my opinion, most grudges are typically over the stupidest things. They're never over anything of substance. They're over something stupid. We have people holding grudges against people because they did something to them in high school. And now you're almost 50 years old and you're still holding on to that grudge. Just give that some thought, how ridiculous that is. Somebody did you wrong. Somebody did you wrong when you were kids. And now you are not only adult, but you now have kids who are the age or older than when they did this to you. Let that go. That's not a choice that ever helps you. In fact, it could, whether you know it or not, because I know people always have this idea that, well, I don't need them. You never know. You never know. When you do people wrong, you never know how you're gonna need them. Wouldn't it be something if one day your kid needs help, your kid needs a job, and this person who you have a problem with is the president of a company that can help your kid? My point is, why are you blocking blessings? Don't hold on to grudges. It makes no sense. I It's funny because this next part I'm talking about, my father's actually right next to me, but me being on my vacation, I've learned a lot about my parents, and in some cases it's helped me understand certain things about myself and about them. My father grew up actually being the father of his house, and potentially his father not taking care of him growing up. And my father was not the easiest man growing up with. But the one thing I do know, my father was always a very good provider, extremely good, and it was always something that was very serious for him to provide for his children and for his family. I have a greater understanding of that today now that I understand the interaction between him and his father. I don't think I understood that as a kid. So it comes across, or it came across very differently. I wish I would have known that younger. But here's what I'm saying to you. There's a lot of fathers out there who, hang on, Mom. There's a lot of fathers out there who have similar stories, and they don't take care of their children. That's a choice, right? We make these choices. So there are a bunch of men out here who have grown up without fathers. And rather than say, I know what that feels like, I'm going to take care of mine, they do the same thing to their children. But that's a choice, okay? That is a choice. My mother came to the United States, like a lot of our parents, immigrant, not speaking the language, and you know, create herself. My father did the same thing. That was a choice they made. Sorry, I'm in the tropics, so the connection isn't great. I was saying, so my parents came here as immigrants, and you know, like so many other stories, had to endure a lot of things, taking very low-paying jobs and not necessarily being treated very well. And in spite of that, created a life for themselves and for their children, where me and my siblings, we went to private school, and we went to college, and we never wanted for anything. They have a good life for themselves now. They have a beautiful house in their home country. They were able to come back. My point is, that's all from a choice. They could have decided to stay in Martinique and try to raise us here, I wonder if they didn't make those choices where I would be. So understand every choice that you make has impact. It has impact not just on you, but on those after you, your family, the people around you. As a kid, I was a pretty bad kid. I know that's hard to believe, but I was Dennis the Menace in so many ways. Everything from stealing to fighting to running away to I did it all. I did it all. And you know, my parents who had me later in life, I don't think they were really prepared for me. But they made some choices that I think ultimately helped me and would eventually mold me into hopefully somewhat of a decent person. They made the choice to discipline me. I got a lot of discipline and needed that. I throw that out there because today I don't know that a lot of parents are making that choice to corral their children when they see that they're doing the wrong thing. Doesn't have to be abuse, folks, but there has to be some level of discipline. They made choices of private school versus public school. And I'm not talking against public school, not at all. There are brilliant people that come out of both. It's not so much the education. It was an environment that was necessary for me given where I was growing up. The streets I was growing up, they just felt that it was necessary that they just felt it was necessary to I got parents who don't understand I'm live and and you guys could hear everything that they're saying. At any rate, they needed me to be in a more sheltered environment where they thought I could thrive and not deal with negative elements, even though I was still around negative elements. But they made sure that I was being surrounded by something positive as well as sports. Sports kept me alive. So I'm naming all those things because it's not any one thing that helped me grow up. It was a connection of things. My parents gave me love and guidance, but then the people at my schools, the professors, even classmates who just don't do the wrong thing, being associated with people who are doing right, and then sports that just kept me busy and out of trouble. There was no doing drugs. There was no, because I'm always at practice. I'm always busy. So all those things together kind of led to something. Those are all choices that, at least in my case, eventually turned out to be okay. I eventually got there. I still shock some people where they say, "Oh, we are so proud of you because we did not think you're going to turn out that way." I talked a little bit before about grudges. So I would ask you to take some inventory in your life in terms of the people that you have grudges with, and that you're holding on to bitterness, especially over stupid things. And I know we all have a different gauge as to what's stupid, but you know, somebody took your boyfriend in high school, or somebody stole your watch when you were in the 8th grade. Somebody said something to somebody else about you 20 years ago. Those are not good reasons to still hold a grudge. Show the person that you have matured and that you have grown up, and say, yeah, that's done. And I guarantee you that person will be ecstatic to rekindle the friendship, the relationship that you had before. It's not worth it. That's a choice that you're making that is one buried in negativity. Let it go. Final one I would say is, and this is always a big one. I've been asked by many women many times, what do you think it takes to make a man serious or ready to marry a woman? So here's my thing. When women ask that question, they're looking for some big special answer, some trick. Oh, if you say this, then he's going to be ready to marry you. The only thing that makes a man ready to marry a woman is the man choosing that he's ready to marry the woman. You cannot trick him into marrying you. You cannot bribe him into marrying you. You can't threaten him into marrying you. Now, don't get me wrong. You could do all those things and he will marry you, but that doesn't mean his heart and his spirit will be ready to be married to you. So what that says is, now don't get me wrong, there's some things that you can do to kind of help him in that direction, for him to finally understand, you know what, I think this is the woman I want. This is the person I want to marry. But what I'm saying is, I see too many women out here putting pressure on men. If you have to put pressure on somebody to marry you, he's not ready to marry you. That's only going to be a problem later on. And you're going to be like, well, why did you do this to me? Why did you do it? He wasn't married. He wasn't ready to marry you anyway. Doesn't mean, and ladies, just because a guy is not ready to marry you doesn't mean he doesn't love you. But at the same time, and I'm talking as a father of a daughter, and she knows I've already given her the speech, you know, if a guy has to date you for 8 years before he marries you, you don't have to wait for that. He has a right to say he's not ready to marry. You have a right to say, I need to be with somebody who's serious about being in a relationship with me. So sometimes we have different schedules. It's not always the same time, but you have to be adult enough to say, you know what? I respect the fact that you're not ready, but I'm going to go a different way. If I'm still available and you change your mind, then we can talk again. But for the time being, I'm not going to sit here for 8 years until you're ready to marry me. Meanwhile, I'm letting a whole bunch of potential good husbands walk away or other relationships because you're not ready. So again, those are all choices. He has a choice to make, she has a choice to make. But understand, both of them, when you make the wrong choice, it can have a big impact on your entire family. If he marries you and he's not ready and he's not happy, are you going to have a good marriage? If you marry him knowing he's not ready, or the other way around, you're not ready, you're not going to have a good marriage. And your children are affected by that. Because now they're sitting in a family where they don't see love. They don't know what it is. Father doesn't, you or the guy doesn't know what it is to treat a woman because he never saw his father do it. The woman doesn't know how she should act as a wife because she never saw love come out of her mother. I mean, those things, again, that's that accumulation over time that bears negative fruit down the road. Understand the choices we make have a big impact down the road. Lost my name. So, again, when I say the two roads, let's read this again. Two roads diverge in the wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. I would just challenge you to make some decisions that are less appealing, because usually the greatest growth in our life happens when we have to make ourselves uncomfortable. The problem is most of us want to take the easy way out in everything that we do. It's easier to go this way. It's easier to do that. But easy often doesn't give you the life that you want. You want a good relationship, chances are you have to go through some tough times before the relationship becomes good. You want to raise good children, chances are you got to give tough love and you got to be consistent with them to do it. You can't expect to do easy and have easy and nice down the road. It don't work that way. So just keep in mind, slow and steady wins the race. Until the next time, Chris Adrea, Man in the Mirror. One love.